Hi, I'm Carl Zah, the host of the Silk and Steel podcast, where we cover the latest news, culture, and politics coming out of China. Welcome to the Trade War Diaries, May 6th edition. Right now, China is on vacation. China celebrates the International Workers' Day on May 1st, like most of the world, and most of China have the first week off. You can see the incredible crowds in places like the Boon in Shanghai and my hometown city of Chongqing. Meanwhile, back in the US, people are starting to grapple with the implication of the Trump tariff. Let's see what Trump had to say.
Yourself, they don't make the money off other countries like this. And we had a trade imbalance, we had a deficit, or they had a surplus, another way of saying it, of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, more than $1 trillion. And because of 145%, that's the only reason, but because of they have now 145% tariff, there's no trading. You can't trade with 145%. We are therefore making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion. Our deficit.
Well, since I decide not to buy the BYD supercar Yangwang U9, which would cost $250,000. So I just made $250,000 today, folks. Now let's check with the director of Port of Los Angeles. Let's listen to what he has to say about the slowing down in the China-US trade.
Just describe for us, let's take a beat, really frame it for us, how much volume has just dropped off in the last few weeks?
Yeah, about a third of the import volume, which means give or take about 50,000 20-foot equivalent units gone off the arrivals coming in next week.
From next week is when you expect to see this really hit?
That's correct, and that matches up. The announcement's back on April 2nd, then on April 8th, a little bit of a change on everybody ex-China, Mexico, Canada, and those arrivals are coming at us this weekend.
We'll, of course, dedicate time to your port, but I'm just wondering how you're anticipating this rolls and ripples through the economy from here, how it hits trucking, when this turns up on the shelf. What's the distance, the time, from when you see a drop-off in volume and when we, as consumers, see the shortages?
So this is important because the U.S. consumer hasn't been hit yet.
Right. So CEOs are telling me, hit the pause button, right? I'm not going to import anymore at these kind of prices. Let's wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks till I get some clarity. Then hiring off the table for right now. Capital investment, pause. And the retailers are telling me that realistically, with even the 10%, I'm going to have to pass it on to the consumers.
So how much is this really coming from all over? It's not just about China. This is about really global trade coming to a standstill until there is a much greater degree of certainty and a much lower tariff rate than even the baseline that's been put out there.
Yeah, when I was last with you all, Lisa, I said global trade's going to slow, economies will follow, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Back in November, so many of us were wringing our hands about 4% inflation. We've just added 10 percentage points to imports coming out of Southeast Asia for our port, and these unbelievable numbers out of China.
How much are you going to see a real decline in dock workers if this goes on?
Yeah, this is the question. So the trucker hauling 4 or 5 containers today, next week, she probably hauls 2 or 3. The dock workers are no longer going to see overtime and double shifts. They're going to probably work less than a traditional work week, starting right off the bat. Every 4 containers mean a job. So when we start dialing this back, it's less job opportunities.
And what happens if we get a deal?
If we get a deal, it's going to take about a month. Let me walk you through that real quick. About 2 weeks to get the ships repositioned around these major ports, from Qingdao to Shanghai to Xiamen, load up all those containers, and then another 2 weeks to steam across the Pacific to get to us. This is important because now we're talking about spring and summer fashion. So we're kind of at a crux here that we've got to have something pretty quick.
And back to school, which is going to be, I think, very critical when it comes to political pushback for this administration. We have a story out, it was anecdotal reporting as well. We've heard about China quietly starting to exempt about a quarter of U.S. imports. Are any U.S. importers exempting Chinese tariffs? Is there a way to get around the 145%?
Not really. There may be some exceptions, Anne-Marie, maybe a little bit going north or south of us, but realistically speaking, nobody is out there talking a lot about, hey, I got a better deal coming out of China right now.
The Flexport CEO joined us earlier in the week, and he said ocean freight is down 60% from China. When do we see 100%?
Good question. It depends on how long this goes. We heard the reports overnight through Bloomberg that the folks in China are thinking about talking. What does that mean? Okay, great, but we've got to get a move on here. The other thing is that retailers are saying we've got about 5 to 7 weeks of normal inventory in the country right now. Then we start to see spot shortages if it goes on much beyond this.
Now, this interview was conducted about 4 days ago, last week, end of the last week, which means the US West Coast is getting hit right now as we speak. The truckers and dock workers are going to hit first. The full impact hasn't hit the US consumers yet because they're still buying off the inventories the US businesses has built in front loading in anticipation of the tariff. We still have about 5 to 7 weeks of inventory to work off, even though the price has already started to rise. And this is because the businesses that in order to front load and store a lot of goods from China in anticipation of the tariff, they had to pay increasing warehouse fees, and they're passing that warehouse fee to the consumers. This is why you're seeing a price increase right now, but that's nothing compared what's coming. In about a month time, we're talking about June when the things are going to get really bad. So is U.S. negotiating a trade deal with China? Let's see what the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has to say when he answers the reporters a few days ago.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The Chinese continue to say that the U.S. and China are not engaged in any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. You recently said you've talked to your counterpart, but more about, quote, traditional things like financial stability. So can you clarify, is the administration talking to Beijing specifically about tariffs or not?
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that, over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days that show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly. And even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs. So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
And very quickly, 2 days ago, you said you...
Few days later, now we have an update. Listen to this.
I've said before, there are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet.
Xi Jinping is not calling. In fact, Xi Jinping is attending the Victory Day parade in Moscow, where now the People's Liberation Army Honor Guard is doing rehearsal on the Red Square. So why is U.S. doing this to itself? The self-inflicted pain. Professor Jeffrey Sachs gave a reasonable explanation.
I view China as part of the solution, not part of the problem. The United States definitely views China as part of the problem.
Right.
Why? it's very important to understand why. China became a U.S. enemy a decade ago. You can even note the dates in which the rhetoric changed from partner or traitor to adversary and then to enemy. It started about 10 years ago. Why? For a simple reason. China became very successful. That's all.
Yeah.
So the United States does not like competitors, period. China's a competitor. It is a first-rate competitor. It's out-competing the United States on countless technologies right now. Electric vehicles, battery supply chains, 5.5G transmission, renewable energy, long-distance power transmission, fourth-generation nuclear, and it is on par with the United States and others. I can't express enough how much the United States hates China's success.
Okay.
Not that China has done something terrible to the United States, but China has succeeded. China said in 2014, here are 10 industries where we want to be competitive, where we'd like to lead by 2025. They made a project called Made in China 2025.
Right.
Very clever. We are now in 2025. You know what? In most of those sectors, they succeeded. They made in 2017 a national development strategy for artificial intelligence. They wanted goals by 2025. Comes 2025, DeepSeek. My God, this is really something.
Yeah.
So this is driving the Americans nuts. India is going to become a very, very successful economy. When that happens, and as that happens, the United States will not like India any more than the United States likes China right now. This is fated.
So we are
to
at the
happen.
moment, we are the underdogs at the moment, which is why we are getting all the love.
It's not so much love,
Yeah.
unfortunately, believe me. And the point is, Trump will not open the doors for Indian manufacturing, even if India were to open the doors for agriculture, because Trump's whole idea is low-cost industry
Yeah.
should not destroy American industry. So Trump is not going to do what India wants, which is to make India the replacement for China. It's not going to happen. I think, again, I'm not on the inside, and I don't want to in any way mess up the...
So then how is the United States using India? Because one would think that they would want to move their supply chains to India from China, which is why we are of interest to the United States for our population.
Donald Trump doesn't want supply chains. He really believes, he's a very unsophisticated person, by the way.
Okay.
So he really believes that America should produce what America produces. He doesn't want India's supply chains.
But America doesn't produce anything anymore.
Oh, but that's what he says.
Except defense.
So he wants all those jobs to come back. He doesn't understand the world economy doesn't work that way.
And America has moved on.
Exactly.
All the big tech companies are coming out of
there's a division of labor. He doesn't get that.
I have been talking about for ages on the irreparable damage of American exceptionalism, American supremacist mindset has done to America. But there are people who are more eloquent than me to articulate this. Take a lesson.
This is a quick, thoughtful analysis of where things will be going from here, considering that we are witnessing the downfall of the American empire. So America can't win this, so they are ready to burn the world out. And that's the truth behind the noise that you are hearing, behind the tariffs and the sanctions and the provocations, the military bases, the lies dressed up as liberty, behind the think tanks and the TV shows and the trembling speeches about freedom and rules-based order. It's not strategy, it's not strength, it's fear. The kind that makes an empire reach for the gun when it loses the game. Because the truth is, America can't compete with China on peace, on growth, on infrastructure, on diplomacy, on patience, on civilization. China is rising not through war, but through work. Not through domination, but cooperation. Not through bombs, but bridges. And the United States, a country addicted to power, soaked in debt, hollowed out by greed, can't stand that. They can't stand this, not morally, not psychologically, not spiritually. So what do you do when you can't catch up? You sabotage the race. You flip the board. You kill the winner. This is why every time China proposes peace, America answers with provocation. This is why America calls development threat and sovereignty aggression, and vice versa. This is why the Pentagon dreams of war that they can't win, because it would rather take the world with it down than admit that the time is over. This is not leadership. It's a breakdown, an empire facing the mirror and screaming at the reflection. You see, for a narcissist, competition isn't just competition, it's humiliation, it's exposure, it's death. And when such a mind holds nuclear weapons, humanity is in danger. This is the psychology of decline. It doesn't retreat, it doesn't reflect, it lashes out. So don't be fooled by the flags. Don't be distracted by the slogans. This isn't about China being authoritarian. It's about America being afraid. Afraid of a world where it's no longer God. And if we don't stop it, it will press that button. Not because China attacked, but because America couldn't compete. Because the Zionists couldn't hold exposure. And when the day comes, the obituary of our world will be short. They died because an empire couldn't accept its own irrelevance.
快手，拥抱每一种生活。
How do the Chinese citizens respond to this? Well, first they notice this White House spokesperson wears a made in China shirt. And so they made a video about it. Take a look.
25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China.
Okay, first of all, thank you for spending $800 to support a made in China product. But I do need to give you a friendly reminder. If tariffs continue, your next jet might be even more expensive. But here's some good news. China now offers a 30% tax refund on all purchases made in the country. Yes, all products. Immediately cash back. And US citizens now can enter China without a visa for 240 hours. No applications, no waiting, just come. A shirt that costs you $40 in the US may only cost you $8 in China. Same stitching, same fabric, better price. So we sincerely invite you to come and shop in China. Thank you, America, for helping us make China great again.
That wraps up Trade War Diaries, the May 6th edition. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your comment below to tell me what you think and what more you'd like to see on my channel. I'm Carl Za. Until next time, bye-bye.